Hello, hello. There you are. Hi.
Hey, hey, hey. Hello, everyone.
Hello, 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 everyone. And welcome to Lighting Your Torch. My name is Candace Miles. Let me just talk about myself. I empower Black millennial and Gen Z women who are stepping into leadership roles for the very first time with the tools, resources, and confidence they need to exceed with my business as a leadership coach. And my co host here, I'll let her introduce herself.
Hello, everyone. My name is Cynthia Haley, and I am Chief Energy Officer and founder of Transition to Infinite Possibilities. I have a career coaching business where I specialize in helping corporate professionals reach new heights in their careers, through targeted leadership and career readiness. But I like to call my business Coaching with a Twist because not only do I focus on the fundamentals of leadership and career readiness with things like interview prep, but I also hone in on energy management. So I approach coaching with a unique blend of career and energy management. So I am happy to be here with my co-host, Candace, as we kick off another episode or segment of our Lighting the Torch series. Hey, Candace.
Hello, Cynthia. So, those of you who are joining for the first time, you're probably like, what is Lighting the Torch? A few months ago, Cynthia and I, along with another counterpart, had a chat, and it was different generations that was on this chat. And from this chat, we discovered that each generation has its own different, unique perspective. But when you put those perspectives together, we actually light each other's torch. That flame becomes bigger. And that is what this series has come about, of lighting the torch, where you are going to get different perspectives from different generations, keeping it real about the topic.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking on the topic, Cynthia, I know this is near and dear to your heart.
Yes, so I'm going to just go ahead and forewarn everyone that if you hear a lot of passion kind of pour in, just excuse me. But there is a topic right now in corporate America, in the world, especially here in America, around diversity, equity, and inclusion. And one of the things, if you saw in our social media postings and things like that, we have a phrase in there that says, "Did you earn it?" And right now, there are societal norms that say DEI means "Did you earn it?" And we're here to have a conversation and kind of challenge that norm, right? Because there is so much more, in our opinion, to diversity, equity, and inclusion, and we want to really dive into it. But first, let's talk about what it is and kind of where it came from a little bit. And it's funny, as I talk about this, when Candace and I started prepping, she's like, "Oh, I didn't really know about the DEI piece until things really boiled with the George Floyd situation a few years back." So, but DEI actually came about in the mid 1960s. And it may not have had a name per se at the time, but they knew there was a need to address challenges when it came to things like affirmative action, when it came to things like the Equal Pay Act, when it came to legislation coming into place around people over 40, protecting your age, things around people with disabilities. So there are a lot of protections that are part of legislation and are in law, that are legal, right? That all make up DEI, or that, I'll say, kind of fosters the meaning behind why we put so much emphasis on diversity, equity, and inclusion. And when we think about DEI, for whatever reason, society is coining it only about race.
Mm-hmm.
We want to challenge that. It's not just about race. it talks about gender, it talks about age, ethnicity, physical ability, neurodiversity. There's a whole gamut around diversity, diversity of thought. Also comes into play, and making sure people feel psychologically safe in corporate settings, and creating awareness around how our differences can actually make us even more successful at work and not be divisive. So, Candace, chime in on your thoughts there, because I know you were like, huh, I didn't realize all of that.
No, and I would say if we have any millennials, I'm representing the millennial generation out there. If you knew about DE and I before 2020, go ahead and drop it in the comments, because I don't, and don't leave me out here by myself, because as Cynthia said, when we were talking about it, I really was oblivious to the whole DEI, thinking that it just sprouted in the George Floyd situation. So to hear that she was in it years before 2020, I was just really taken back, because I really thought that it was a department that just came out. It came out and about whenever George Floyd happened. And a lot of companies, basically, it was the trend. A whole bunch of companies wanted to get on that trend. We all know
Mhm.
everybody loved to sit here and to hop on whatever the new hottest thing is. And so that's what I thought it was, is that, okay, yeah, organizations are trying to show to be united, have this united front, and show that they back up everyone of all cultures, particularly people of
Mm.
color, by doing that. And so to know that it actually stemmed from something deeper, like I said, I was taken back. I was really surprised. And I was a student that day for sure, because I went in afterwards looking into it, and everything that Cynthia mentioned is why it means so much more than
Mhm.
just DE and I.
Right.
But I think when it comes down to it, the reason why it's such a topic right now, and so many companies, schools are getting rid of it, is because they don't have an understanding of what it is exactly.
Correct. Correct. And hence why, a lot of corporations really invested in learnings about DEI. There were trainings around unconscious bias, and how to lead high performing teams, right? High performing teams that are diverse. You want a diverse mix. You don't necessarily want a team that's made up only of people who look and think like you know but we made this segment here only for 30 minutes, because I could go on and on and on and on and on about what DEI is, and definitely what it's not, right? It is definitely not, did you earn it? And to me, I took it personal, because when you think about DEI is personal, because
Mhm.
it's your identity. It's who you are and what you represent, and to attack it in such a way is personal. And so I
But let me ask you, since you said it's personal, I'm gonna go ahead and put it out there. Who is it impacting the most?
it is impact, in my opinion, because this is our perspectives here. I'm going to say it's impacting people of color and Black people in particular. And if we pull it down another layer, Black women, right? And I say that because when we look at the roles that hold these positions in DEI organizations, they're primarily held by women of color, Black women. And so when you start to defund or not incorporate DEI in your business model, you're eliminating jobs,
Mhm.
right? These careers are going or shifting. Or in some cases, what I'm seeing in a lot of organizations is a rebranding of DEI. They're calling it something different. You may see culture, you may see belonging, you may see inclusion, different terms, but really trying to break the DEI and or pulling it in to another business, and letting them own it. But in short, it's impacting us the most, in my opinion. When in fact, you're talking about impact to LGBTQ plus, you're talking about an impact to women, you're talking about impact to veterans, because that's a arm of diversity. Think about it. You apply for a job, it asks you if you're a veteran. You apply for a job, it asks you, do you have a disability? It asks you your race. It asks you all these things that they're collecting this data on, because that's how they determine their makeup, their diverse makeup for their organization, right?
Mm-hmm.
And making sure they adhere to certain laws. But we need measures in place to keep people accountable and make sure that, there is equity in the workplace, right? I think about, we didn't touch on this, but I'm not a sports fanatic, so don't get it twisted. I'm really not. But I had heard about the Rooney Rule, right, in the NFL. That came up, I want to say 2003 ish, 2006. Don't quote me, somewhere out there. But where the Rooney Rule came into play, saying they needed to interview a certain percentage of Black coaches, right? Because they weren't being treated fairly. There wasn't the equity in coaches. And so this Rooney Rule came into place just to ensure there were measures to at least interview, because that wasn't happening. And what that resulted in was a significant increase in qualified, talented coaches who earned it, but they were overlooked because of their race.
So then I think that goes into like the different experiences and who actually, with putting something like that in there, who would be the person that's responsible?
You know, ultimately, as the old people say, a fish rots from the head down, right? And we look at our leadership team. We look at people who are leading these organizations to set the tone. And then when we go from there, it is about our allies, people who, when you know better, you do better, right? And I feel like we all play a role in speaking up when we see things that aren't being done with fairness. When we see, you know, um, let me give you an example, because I tell you, I could talk on this for days, but let me give you an example. I knew of a situation where, and I've experienced this myself, and I know other people have experienced this, where if you are a person of color, it feels as though you have to work twice as hard in your job to be considered for the promotion, right? You're doing the job of 2 to 3 people to hopefully get that promotion, to then not get it for someone who's less qualified, right? When I say less qualified, less experience, maybe no degree, maybe no certifications or licenses, things of that nature, but because they knew someone who knew someone who knew someone, they're given the chance. And without awareness of the true meaning of DEI, behaviors like that just continue to perpetuate. And so your question is, who owns it? Yes, the head, the top, the leadership. They set the tone for the behaviors that are acceptable in an organization. And allies, people who are professionals, people who know better, again, they will do better and call it out when they see it.
Yeah, and I would agree with that. Like whenever everything that's in the news right now, from each state, each university, I think UT today, they just got rid of 60 people, that whole department. Um, the common denominator is like everyone looks the same. But it, like you said, is it's the leadership.
Yep.
Like, when do we hold leadership accountable for DE and I? Yes, like I said, it was something that, to me, it just came out in 2020, especially a lot of companies really started saying, hey, DE and I, we got it, we got it, we got it,
Oh
we got
man, they had the posters made like, oh,
it.
we
They had everything, everything. But at the end of the day, I recall being in numerous of meetings and working groups, and it would it always started where it was a fire, but it always fell by the wayside because people didn't know exactly, okay, we have this department, but what is our objective? What are the KPIs? What are we looking for? Yes, this is hard. It's hard. I was just listening to all my March Madness people out there. I love basketball. So I was literally listening
okay,
to Kara Lawson's speech that went viral when she said handle hard better. And that's with
mm,
leadership too. Like, it's hard when it comes to DEI. It's hard because you have different perspectives coming in, different cultures, different backgrounds coming in, but you have to handle it better. It's never going to go away. This
mm-hmm.
is always going to be something that's going to be there. But if we don't know how to handle hard better, we're going to continue to do things easy. And the
Right.
easiest thing to do right now is to get rid of it.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of, to me, let's talk about the leaders. Let's talk about the leadership. When do leaders get held accountable for making sure that this happens? What about those trainings that you said, I've never been through any of those trainings? You know, I didn't get, like, is that something that you put new leaders in because they're coming in? There's no such
Yeah.
thing as personal or professional values. There's no such thing as, hey, I work, this is me professionally, this is me personally. No.
Yeah.
Your values, when you look at values in the dictionary, it's just one word. You can't shut it off. Your beliefs is just one word. You
Mm-hmm.
cannot shut it off.
Yeah.
It's not until you begin to figure out, okay, how can I really sit down and change?
Mm-hmm. Because I think too, when you talk about trainings, oftentimes new leaders, they get into these positions and they don't understand the laws,
Mm-hmm.
right? There are certain laws that you need to be aware of when it comes to discrimination against race, gender, sexual orientation, against, people over 40, disabilities, the whole gamut, right? There are laws that um, that are protection for people in certain classes. And it's designed that way for a reason. But oftentimes leaders get into positions and they don't know it and they make mistakes and they're not held accountable. So I think the first thing, what would be beneficial in a lot of organizations is not defunding DEI, but leverage your DEI organizations to create awareness, inform them, help strengthen their knowledge around these protections that exist and how they can lead with understanding, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's the notion of just unconscious biases.
That part. We all have them.
We all have them. I don't care if it's generation, because I might think they're too young to pick this up. I'm going to have to break it down to them.
Mm-hmm.
That's not always the case, right? But I made an assumption
Mm-hmm.
simply because of one's age, or it could be vice versa. You lead a team and you lead a team where people are older than you. But
I've
because
been
you lack awareness,
there. Mm-hmm.
the way that you lead them is ineffective.
Yeah. Because even to that point, like, I remember um, where I had this executive position, my senior leadership, where they actually had their child come in as an intern, but then after
Mhm.
came in as an intern, they were quickly promoted to manager. You're talking about someone who is fresh out of college and they're in a manager role leading people. What training are you going through?
Just
What
regular administration,
you
right?
you get what I'm saying?
Time card and how to make sure micromanaging, and processing instead of actually leading. I see a comment here, Candace, too, that says, my concern is getting rid of it when will they, if they get rid of ERGs, right? Where most companies have ERG groups roles within the DEI teams. It's a good point, right? Because ERGs have been a pivotal uh, uh, part of organizations where they've created a lot of connectivity for employees. You think about this remote environment, people struggled not having those connections in the office or that human interaction. And ERGs actually fill that gap where you could be a part of a group who you felt was like minded, or you had something in common with, or either you wanted to be an ally for, right?
Mm-hmm.
And ERGs have been led in most companies by the employees with support of their DEI organizations and leaders.
So
And
now what is
so,
that messaging telling to the employees now?
right, that impacts their experience as an
Mhm.
employee, engagement, morale, because it's like, well, what do you think of me? I really tapped into this ERG to connect with people, to network, to build, to learn, to grow. I don't have that anymore. And it also sends a message and not a good one. So, personally, if I find an organization that doesn't embody and embrace ERGs, that's not an organization I want to be a part of.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and it to me, like when it comes down to ERGs, I know leaders may not even see that as something, even though they may vocalize it, but see it as if it was something that is even going to be impacted,
Mm-hmm.
because it's not something like you said, the ERGs are mostly led by employees. How many leaders were going to it? I know I didn't have time to go to ERGs. I would have to, I had to be very intentional about, okay, I want to go to this here, but the impacts of that is, it, to me, just D and I all around, it's something that's a lot of leaders should really take a page out of Mark Cuban's book. He
Mm-hmm.
literally publicly attests, he publicly challenged Elon Musk when Elon Musk says something about, oh, DEI is nothing but racism. And it's like
Mm-hmm.
he said no, he thought the same thing
Mm-hmm.
until he looked into it. Now you're talking about Mark Cuban.
Wow.
That's what, to me, at that point, he was not only showing that he was a great leader, because leaders also too, they continue to grow and to change over time. And
Mm-hmm.
for him to want to get knowledge about, oh, this is something that is coming out, everyone is doing it, I need to know exactly what it is, for him to gain the knowledge on himself and to challenge another person that looks like him publicly about it, that's true allyship.
Right.
And I don't, and oftentimes you don't see that in the workplace. You don't
Mm-hmm.
see your leaders coming in and being, they may say it, but my mama always said, she always said, it's not your words, it's your actions.
Exactly. Exactly. And I think you're also leading to the point of the series and why we named it Lighting the Torch,
Mhm.
right? Because for what I know, and if I could teach another Mark Cuban about what DEI truly means, not just what it means, but most leaders want to know, well, what's in it for me? Okay, so if I embrace this, what am I going to get out of it? Right? You want an engaged workforce. You want a workforce who feels a sense of belonging,
Mhm.
and not because mama and daddy helped get me the job because they know you, but because I did earn it, and I don't want to be slighted just because of what I look like or what my beliefs are, or, because I'm over 40, you're not going to hire me. You're not going to consider me for the job. And, but if we could do more of lighting the torch and helping the next generation. So if your organization doesn't have it as part of the onboarding with new managers, more seasoned leaders, take the torch and light that new manager's torch. Help them understand what it really means and how they can be more effective and have stronger, high performing teams that understand the impacts of diversity, equity, and inclusion. That's my
Oh,
thought.
that's your thought.
That's my thought.
That's your thought to help them light the next person's torch.
Yes.
um, I'm I'm going to say for mine, I was recently reading Atomic Habits again.
Mm.
And he was talking about getting better 1% each day to see the change. But what really stuck to me was how you look at these coaches. A lot of coaches, you see, I'm going to coaches because I love basketball and that's what's going on right now. But a lot of the coaches, they have never actually played,
Mm.
but their goal is to win. But in
Right.
order for them to win, they have to have a system, meaning they have to recruit the right players. They got to make sure they have the right coaches in place. Like it's a system. And so for me, the takeaway would be is not to just get an outcome when it comes to getting these new leaders that are coming in. You want them to, the outcome is that, okay, I need you to lead. No. What is the system behind making that leader a great leader? How are you, what trainings are you sending them to? What resources are you providing them with? What systems are you setting them up with to show like, hey, this is how you can be efficient, whatever the case is. But to have an actual system in place that's going to help them, because they're the next coming up behind. D&I is never going away. It may go away on paper, but it's never going away.
Right. The
So
fundamentals of it.
the
Right.
fundamentals of D&I will always be there. So how are you setting up the next person? And so for me, that's how you light the flame, is put a system in place.
Mm.
Because it really starts, like you said, to tie into what you said earlier, it starts from the head.
Yeah.
And the head is leadership.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I strongly agree. And there's even a comment around, leaders not wanting to be involved. I know we're at time, but I think this is a good point to touch on, where leaders don't want to engage in ERGs, and the people are watching. It's like being a parent. Your actions, your children are watching you, and leaders, the employees are watching. And if you want your employees to be more engaged, to take that next step, take on more responsibility, they want to see that you actually care. They want to see that you care about who they are and what they identify as. But at the end of the day, it's about the bottom line. And I think leaders won't really get involved until it hits their pocket. And that's just a hard, sad reality. But when you say there are metrics behind this, and if you don't meet this metric, it affects your pocket, it's a completely different response. But without accountability and having some ownership, they won't play, they won't be in the space. And I think that there has to be some accountability, and then we just need to be hiring true leaders that actually earned it, and not just who they
Promoting.
know and who they know what they um you
Woosah now.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But I know we were very conscious of keeping this at 30 minutes this time around, because we really want to be one respectful of time, but we also want to make sure that we're making that connection with everyone. This is what our third one, right, Candace? Technically two, but we did a kickoff,
Technically two.
right?
Technically two. But yeah.
Technically two. And so we're learning, we're growing, we're evolving, and we want to make sure that this is a series that really resonates with everyone. So if you have feedback, you have topics, share it with us, connect with us, let us know what you want to talk about, what's meaningful to you, and we'll bring it to the table, we'll bring it to the live stream here.
Mhm.
Um,
You can catch us
yes.
first and third Thursdays at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I gotta say both because we are bi-coastal on here. I am in San Diego. Cynthia is in Charlotte.
Well, technically Concord, North
Oh,
Carolina,
okay.
but for the
Listen.
people who don't know, we'll go with Charlotte. But that's another element of diversity. We our geographic location.
Yes, yes. But yes, we are at time and it went fast. It
It
went
did go
very
fast.
fast.
It did go
So
fast. So thank you. I think as you can see, we do have our social media handles up here on the screen. I'm at Tip Energy Coach. Candace is at No Gap Consulting. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. We do have a YouTube channel, and of course, LinkedIn. LinkedIn is where we connect the most with our audience. And if you're trying to grow in your careers, LinkedIn is also where you need to be. All right.
and share this if it resonated with you to a friend who can tell another friend about it.
And educate them that DEI
Yes.
is not didn't earn it. It is diversity, equity, and inclusion. And on that note, thank you
Yeah.
everyone. We appreciate you. Have a great rest of your evening.
Bye.
Bye bye.